Hi again, and we are continuing talking about Mulan, the true story. Now, let's talk a little bit about the Toba or Tabgachi people of the Northern Wei. Let's see how Disney portrayed the Mulan's people. As we can see, they're portrayed as typical Chinese, but geographically, I think it's a little bit off. It seems more like the Chinese of maybe a later period and also maybe of southern or at least central China, but not the northern China. So obviously, this doesn't match everything we talked about previously in terms of history and culture and geography and etc. Fortunately, we have enough depictions survived of actual historical Northern Wei people in a form of all kind of depictions, clay models, little figurines, wall paintings, murals, and etc. So we can kind of reconstruct how the Northern Wei people looked like in actuality. And for example, we know that they most likely wore these long nomadic coats and capes, and they rode on their horses, and they covered themselves and their horses in this lamellar armor with skirts and all these pieces covering entire bodies of on themselves and their horses, which is a clear nomadic tradition, obviously, that could come only from the north, from the northern barbarians, so to speak. Also, we have some surviving depictions of uh, their houses and their yurts, the clay models, and as we can see, they show more traditional Chinese architecture for their stationary houses, the stone walls and these ceramic tile roofs and etc. But there are depictions of these Toba yurts with very rounded tops, which is very distinctive, and we will see a lot of it because it seems that Toba were very fond of these rounded tops as opposed to other nomads who loved kind of high tops for everything, for their headwear, for their yurts, and etc. Also, we can see some depictions of uh, Toba women, and they're also shown wearing traditional nomadic coats and capes and hoods. Very often they are shown riding horses, and let's not forget that horses were expensive and luxury in traditional parts of China, but for the nomads they were just a mere mean of transportation. Everybody had them, and the nomads encouraged women, children to ride horses from early age on until very, very old age. And therefore, uh, no wonder that Toba women are shown riding horses. Also, they're shown wearing these braided hair, just the way the name Tabgachi suggests, that those who braid their hair. There are also surviving models of uh, transportation, of Toba transportation, in form of these wheeled carts that were, as we know today, invented by the nomads. All wheel transportation, the chariots, the carts, were invented by nomads because they were the first to domesticate horses, but they couldn't ride them. So they had to invent these wheeled carts and chariots to be pulled by horses. And we can see that in some of the clay models of the Northern Way era. Another transportation shown is camels. And camels, again, very, very traditional nomadic mean of transportation. It's called the camel of desert, the sheep of desert. Camel is a sheep of desert uh, because of that. So, taking all this information in consideration and spending hours and hours and hours and days and weeks studying this whole heritage and depictions and culture and history and etc., putting all these pieces together, I finally was able to come up with my own artistic interpretation or reconstruction of what the actual Toba might have looked like. And the series of uh, depictions, images that I'm going to show right now shows exactly what I arrived to in terms of their looks and their lifestyle and etc. For example, on this image here, we can see Mulan weaving, because that's how the actual ballad starts, with Mulan weaving and crying. And the second, oh, and the loom she's using is of the nomadic uh, type, because the nomads used mobile looms, not the big wooden looms that you can see in settled nations. The nomadic used very light mobile version of it. So this is how I depicted it. Mulan sitting next to a yurt and weaving, and she has these braids and etc. And on the second image, I show the training of Mulan uh, in her childhood, because uh, when Mulan joined the army, obviously the way it worked, she didn't have time to train. The way they showed it in the Disney film, they didn't train in the army. The Toba and Tabgachi, they were trained from the childhood, and they had their own equipment bought and purchased or made. So when they were summoned to army, they arrived fully equipped and fully trained, and they were immediately ready to go. So this image shows how how Mulan possibly were trained by her parents, by most likely by her father, to become a warrior. And these two show how Mulan. Uh, this is a moment when Mulan departs to war in her full war equipment. She has a second horse, because the nomads used to do that. They would always have at least one or even more horses to uh, as cargo horses. And also, uh, in case if one horse got tired or wounded, they could always hop on another horse. So sometimes they would travel with two, three, four horses even. But in this case, I showed just two. And also you can see the reconstruction of Tuoba yurt with a rounded top, and the stone house in the distance, and the wheeled cart. And on the second one, you can see how Mulan is traveling on the plains, because it says in the ballad that she was traveling along the bank of the Yellow River, and that's exactly what I depicted there. Um, on this one, again, I show Mulan and her fellow Toba cavalrymen in full armor on the march, in the wheel carts, and using camels, cargo camels, and their armor, lamellar armor, and their weaponry. And then Mulan in her full Toba way armor and dressing, and her horse, just like it is, just like we saw earlier in the depictions. And on this one, for example, I tried to imagine what Mulan looked like when she just arrived in the army, and then when she kind of graduated from the army, because she was serving for 12 years, and obviously she was promoted. She couldn't have just stayed in the same position. So uh, on the left image, I showed Mulan as a light cavalryman, as she was probably in the beginning, she was probably assigned to some light cavalry or some sort of light archery regiment. But then, as she progressed and she improved her skills and maybe acquired some armor in the battles, she probably became a heavier cavalry uh, uh, unit, and that's what I was trying to show on this image. And on this one, for example, I also imagined what uh, Mulan might have looked like in. This is the aftermath of the war. This is when she returned home, and this is what I imagined she might have looked like, because she was already 28 when she returned from war, and this is what she might have looked like. So this is kind of it for this section. We covered uh, what my reconstruction of Tuoba people, what they might have looked like, or most likely looked like. And in the next one, we'll talk about the enemies of the Tuoba and what they might have looked like. So please stay with me, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you.